Welcome to this edition of the Douglas County School District Growing Together podcast. We will be talking to leaders, educators, specialists, and community members about topics that matter to our students, our schools, and our community. Let's jump into this week's episode as we grow together. Welcome everyone. My name is Erica Mason. I'm so glad to be here with some teachers and our Director of ELD Programming at Castle Rock Middle School. We have Sam Terras and Bree Moore. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. We are going to talk a little bit about ELD here at Castle Rock Middle School and co-teaching so that others have an idea of the great things that you're doing here at Castle Rock Middle School. So Remy, can you start us off with a little bit about what's your overall vision for ELD programming in Douglas County School District?
So in Douglas County School District, we have a program that is called balanced programming. And really what that means is that we serve our emerging bilinguals at the universal, targeted, and intensive levels as they need. And part of that universal programming is co-teaching and collaboration across content and language. So looking at what do students actually need universally, that's about differentiation and language development and content learning. So that is what our focus today really is about. That targeted and intensive support is really about students who are brand new to the U.S. and might need some more intensive programming. Our students who are dually identified as emerging bilinguals in special education, and some more intensive and targeted needs. But co-teaching and collaboration really falls at the universal level. And how do we actually teach language and content at the same time?
Wonderful, Remy, thank you. So Sam and Bree, how does this drive your work and your vision for Castle Rock Middle School?
Well, I would say that co-teaching is really how we meet the needs of 95% of the English learners here at Castle Rock Middle School, because most of them don't need the intensive support. And it's a great way to meet the needs of English language learners in an environment that's least segregative, because they're in a class that's mixed with all sorts of students from various backgrounds. And honestly, too, I think a major strength of our program here at Castle Rock Middle School is that I'm really part of the team as a teacher, and so all the kids on the team just see me as one of the teachers. And so that really helps promote the inclusion, I feel, of my students specifically, because I'm not some interventionist that they just see once in a while, but I'm kind of around all day long in multiple classes, and we're all just part of one big happy family.
So what does that look like in the classroom in action?
I see a lot of kids who are not ESL in the classroom who do get to benefit from that help from Sam, and they just get to all feel like they can work together, and so the ESL kids don't feel singled out. So I think that there's benefits there in the classroom. I think also just knowing exactly what level each kid is to provide that support is helpful, so I know how much to give and how much Sam gives and how much we support these kids and differentiate for them based on their level.
And also to add to that, I think what Bree and I really strive for in our class is a team teaching model where we co-plan, which is a major element of team teaching.
Right.
Where we actually have a team plan period, which is what we're on right now.
Thank you
so
again.
That I'm part of the team meetings, but specifically we know we'll use that time as well to actually plan out our lessons, kind of map our pacing, what we're going to do, and we both bring to the table what we would like to see in the classroom, and we kind of talk it through and see how can we make this happen. There's some compromise and give and take, and what if we did it this way, and what if we did it here instead of then, or whatever. But we kind of come to that agreement ahead of time, so when we get to the classroom, we kind of know what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and who's going to do it, and who's going to kind of take the lead either that day or for part of the day. But no matter who's taking the lead that day, we're both present. We're helping the kids stay on task or with specific support that they may need, while the other one is kind of leading the class. And then the next time we may switch. It just kind of depends on the day and what we're doing. But I think what's really powerful about that is that really teaching is like an art, right?
Right.
I mean, yes, there's science to it, but it's an art too, and certain personalities and certain approaches reach different kids in different ways. And so when you have two sort of personalities, two approaches coming to the table, you just automatically reach more kids that way.
It really looks like your team has come together and make this run like a well-oiled machine. You know what your kids need, but I bet you didn't get there overnight. So can Remy, you as helping to support them and you guys and the teacher, talk a little bit about the journey of how you got there and what works, what didn't work, so that others can learn from your experience.
I think the biggest thing was going in as a teacher and not thinking of Sam as a bonus person. I think that is such a flawed and just awful for the kids overall, thinking to go into it. And so going in as co-teaching, truly co-teaching, has been something that has really just been so beneficial for us as a team and our kids. I had a student the other day who said, "Wait, but who's the teacher for that class? I don't really know which one it is." And that's really the goal, is to get to that place where they don't know the difference between either one of us. And so I think that has just been really beneficial for the kids. I think we work well as people, which having a person that you get along with to work with is really nice. And this is our first year working together, which has been exciting and interesting and different. And last year I worked with our other ESL teacher, Sam Moritz, with 8th grade. And she invited me to go to a class that Remy taught on co-teaching. And there was so much that I learned there and grew in. And so having that to go to, starting as a co-teaching, has really helped kind of me develop how I think about co-teaching in the classroom.
For me, I've actually had a long and varied history with co-teaching. Going back to years ago, I co-taught actually a drama class. Before I even knew that co-teaching was a thing or a term, I would just say, "Oh, we teach this together." And I didn't know what else to call it. So I've actually been on an interesting path where I've kind of done this for a long time. Right. Just because of different circumstances and situations and initiatives from the leadership that I've had. So coming here to Douglas County and hearing about co-teaching was kind of exciting to me, because I'm like, well, I've done this before. And so it's been a learning process, and it really takes flexibility from both teachers, because it's not a solo performance. Like, teaching is traditionally viewed as kind of something where you close the door and you're it.
Right.
And I think, that has its place, don't get me wrong, but I think, again, because you're bringing so many different things to the table as two teachers, it's really powerful for students. And I really have to commend Bree too, because I came to the table with definitely things in mind. Like, I did have an agenda, I'm not going to lie. And it's an agenda where I was willing to, give and take on it. But we sat down before the end of the year last year when we knew we were going to teach together. It's like, this is kind of what I want to do. What do you think? And she was like, okay, and ready to run with it. And and we've adapted it as we have gone along. But I really am thankful that Bree was so willing to listen to what I had to say and not, not to say whatever, I'm going to do what I want to do, because that can happen too. But I think when you have that willingness to give and take and work together and compromise, is really kind of where it has to start. And then having just the positive rapport too, just goes a long way. And I think also, as like the interventionist, I always try to make myself as indispensable as possible to whatever the situation is, even if it's not team teaching. But with all of the teachers I work with, I'm there for all the kids. I help grade. I'll take small groups of any grouping, not just the ESL kids or ELs. So, that's a lot of it too.
Good, great.
So.
Well, and I think you have hit the nail on the head. I think part of the most important part of co-teaching is the planning that goes into it, and finding your routine. I think the routine piece is very critical, so that your planning doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours, so that you can actually get it done in a conversation, in a planning session, and know exactly what the steps are for the classroom. I'm so impressed by this team and this school in the understanding around the importance of collaboration and aligned curriculum and experiences for students that don't segregate them in other classrooms unnecessarily. And the focus on student need is incredible. And I think the way that they've started to really build that essence of team is very, very important. I think some of the pitfalls people fall into is they don't take time to actually have the planning conversation and understand how the other person works. So we do have our co-teaching and collaboration course that is run a number of times throughout the year. Our next session is January 14th, and it is filling. So if you're interested, you're absolutely welcome to register for that course. We walk through understanding your teammate in the first section, and it's kind of like getting into a relationship. You have to understand how that person thinks and what they like, and what really kind of bothers them about, when people come into the classroom. How do you really, if you're the person going in or the person accepting the person into your room, how do you operate and what will work and what won't? And then the next big section of the class is really looking at the methods that you can use to co-teach. And there are about 7 methods that we use in that course to focus on and to give teachers some choice about how they actually co-teach, so it's not always the same every single day. And then we wrap up with some planning time, so you actually get to leave with a plan to implement short term and then goals for the long term. So it's a great course to get people started and to get the conversations going that sometimes we don't have time during the school day to get started. So thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that. And I think the biggest piece is the willingness to be vulnerable and to shift for students, and the focus on what students actually need is critically important.
While you're talking, Remy, something came to mind I wanted to add as well about that. I want to give props to our school leadership here, because the reason why I can be fully part of the team, and because my students feel fully part of the team, is because we absolutely cluster our students by team here. So I'm just going to say that's an essential part of the process. It enables me to have a common co-planning with the rest of the team and with Bree, and I have an advisement that is not ESL specific. So again, I have a mix of kids in there, so that just contributes to the feeling that I'm part of the team, my students are part of the team, and we're fully integrated into that kind of the fabric of that team family that we are striving to kind of create that culture. But clustering and co-planning are the kind of like the big picture elements that have to be in place for this to really work in this way.
I'm really impressed at the level of intentionality that comes from Remy, you as the director, and you both as part of the co-teaching and co-planning team. What I'm hearing is it takes that intentionality, that dedication to making sure it works all the way from your school principal to your entire team to district support. I'm really impressed to hear about it. Remy, as the director of ELD programming in Douglas County, how do you think that the strategic plan supports the work that you're doing and that Bree and Sam are doing in the classroom with co-teaching, along with the collaborative practices that you've talked about?
I think that this collaboration and co-teaching is supported by the Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity initiative we have that is embedded in the strategic plan. And that piece is being called out very specifically, and this is one of the instructional frameworks that we can actually use to create a more inclusive and diverse environment, so we are not unnecessarily taking students out of class and that we're meeting students' actual needs. And I think it's also supported with our flexible instructional delivery. This is one of the ways that we can really take our curriculum and use our best expertise, both the content teacher and the instructional interventionists and our English language development teachers, to really leverage their expertise and their knowledge about students and flexibly deliver our instruction that truly meets students' needs. So that's the beauty of collaboration and co-teaching, is that you can have that ideal situation for learning and growing together with our students.
Fantastic. It sounds really exciting. And again, to Sam and Bree's point, I'm really excited to see what they're doing in the classroom in action. Sam and Bree shared some of their pitfalls and successes. Just to wrap us up, is there anything else that you want all of our listeners to hear or know about?
I think I would just encourage everyone to consider the degree of collaboration and how it can really ignite learning in a way that honors and values students, their voices, their cultures, their languages, their interests, and their passions, and that we can really work together to create an environment that honors them.
You guys have been fascinating to listen to and talk with today. I appreciate you taking time and, again, taking your planned time. I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing. I'd love to come back and hear more about it at another time and get into the classrooms and see it in action. So thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today, and don't forget to listen next week for our Growing Together podcast.